Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the USA Rugby Clubhouse. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Petrie, joined by Mr. Finger Flick Pass himself, Ben Foden. Unbelievable little flick pass that you had over the weekend. That looked really sharp. Speaking of sharp, Fodes, that's a sharp looking sweatshirt you have on. I like it. I'm digging it. Where is mine, dude? So I come in my suit. I'm roasting in this room with these lights on me here with my suit jacket on, and you're sitting there like hanging out casually. What's this all about?
So listen, I'm a Brooklynite now, so I've got to be all trendy with the kids. And so suit jackets and shirts are not the way to go. And obviously I'm representing the budgie smugglers that don't just do nice tight fitting, water wear. Obviously they've got a nice casual range as well. But also any guests that we have on the show, they always could get away with a nice little gift. And so on that note,
I love it.
the old smuggler's bucket hat is also going out as well. I
love it. I could have used one of those this weekend. I was roasting in the sun. I mean, it was just hot here in New York this weekend. I could have used one of those sharp looking hats. Man, folks, I set you up so well for that. Like, that was like a little underhand. Like, I teed you up for that one. That was great. Well done, folks. Well, you really took that and ran with it. Nice job.
It's like we planned this. Yeah, but I really am digging the shirt. The buggy smell.
I like it. Yeah, and mine must have gotten lost in the mail. That's fine. I get it. It's fine.
You will kick up next week. We'll be matching next week. It's on its way to you. Don't worry. We mentioned before. Get Buckles to come and deliver it to you. But let's talk about rugby. Rugby, Mikey. That's what we're here about. Another good weekend for New York. But saying that, all the teams we wanted to lose didn't lose. They all won. So it's still very tight in the Eastern Conference. Lots to play for. Still lots going on. Starting with our game, New York versus the Free Jacks, obviously at New York. We did our job. 5 points we wanted from the game. We got back on the scoreboard because we got a couple of games without scoring a try. So good to get 5 tries. Good to get the win. Some good performances. To name a few, Harry Bennett stepping in for the injured Dan Hollinshead was outstanding. And he's been, you have guys who are in your squad, and he's been a real driving force, but not just playing wise, but in organization, in delivering messages, in sort of taking over that coaching role as well, especially because Greg McWilliams stepped down right at the start of the season. A lot of guys had to step up into those roles, and Harry's been one of those guys who's been working really hard, and obviously a little bit hard when you're sort of playing number 2 to Dan Hollinshead, who's playing very well, and he was waiting for his opportunities. But he was outstanding. He came on against LA, had some real good touches, and for him to get his first start and play the way he did is just a compliment to him, really.
Unreal, man. I have to be honest. First of all, I was standing there on the sideline. I had actually the privilege of being the sideline reporter this weekend, working with the dynamic duo of Dan Power and Brian Hightower, who are awesome, right? I love working with Matt McCarthy and Alex Jaimo. I love my teams that I'm part of with the broadcast team stuff. But on that sideline, it was scorching hot on Sunday afternoon. Like, I feel like my dress shoes beneath my feet were melting into the turf. It was awful. It was so bad. But Harry Bennett, man, he was unbelievable. And I'm so happy for him. I've roomed with him on a bunch of our trips when we were playing together, when we were traveling in the past couple of years, Fodes. And I know it's been kind of a tumultuous MLR campaign for him because, before Hollinshead got there, it was Cahill Marsh, right? And so he's been playing that second fiddle for a little bit. And we talked about it on the broadcast. And then even early in the season, Dan Hollinshead wasn't there yet. And you had Andy Ellis running a 10, right? So it's like, Harry Bennett just kind of feeling very much in limbo, gets his opportunity, and man, he took it and ran with it. I mean, he kicked well, he scored a try, he passed well, and for the first time in a couple of weeks, you guys had some seriously good-looking attack, and bonus point 1, not just 1, but bonus point 1, right? So that's credit to him, really well done.
So, Mikey, you know why that is? You know why that is, though, right?
Because when you were playing back at 15, is that it? I saw some magic from you, folks. I saw magic from you this weekend. I have to be honest. I joked about it at the beginning with that flick pass, but man, that was unbelievable. That was really class. That was really, really, really class.
Well, anyway, talking of class, we both called it LA taking on the Gil Groenies, the Austin boys, grudge match. Both the Gilchrist teams going at it, and it went the way we thought it was. It's a gritty game, though, real gritty game. Only 17-3 to the the Guiltinis, who now go to 40 points, I think, in the West Conference, and sort of cement themselves at the top there, sort of streaking away. But it was a good game. It was a bit of a tactical battle, and we sort of said this before as well, because Austin's defense is very good, and so they didn't concede too many points. But they got nothing from the game, and the Guiltinis came to town, back in winning ways, got the 4 points thereafter, back sitting pretty at the top of the table. And then there is some real distance now between them in first, and I think it's Utah who's sitting in second at the moment. So I think they're shoe-in for sort of top spot in the West Conference.
That was a quick turnaround for those teams this weekend too, right? Like it reminds me of like those World Cup tournaments where you get like 3 or 4 days in between, and it's like they played on a Wednesday night this week.
Yeah. Why was that? Does anyone know? Is it just because they wanted to get a long weekend off or something, or what?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea, but I know that when we used to get those at the World Cup, we'd play like on the Sunday and then all of a sudden have to turn around and play again on the Wednesday. It was less than ideal. It was not cool, to be honest.
And then we'll move on to the next game. One game that didn't sadly go Rooney's way is the NOLA versus Utah. We were saying we're very much back on the Utah bandwagon. They were looking good. And again, they look good at times. And Mikey Teo looking really good at 15, scored a cracker of a try. But at the same time, Utah they throw it away sometimes as well. And listen, NOLA are a very good team. They've got some very good players, some individual brilliance from a few of their guys as well, set them apart. And NOLA would be delighted that they get the full 5 points from that game from a tough Utah outfit. But Utah, you can tell that they're capable of beating anyone. They have the magic, they have the firepower, but they give away a lot of points. They give away a lot of tries, real tries that you're like, oh, that was a bit soft. And I think they'll be disappointed because there's been a few games that you've been like that you just felt that Utah should have won. They dominated possession and they dominated territory, and then they just leaked a few really weak tries, and you're a little bit like, oh. I think that's the missing edge that Utah have. I think they are a very good side, but if they just had that sort of like defensive edge where they're a bit more proud of their try line, they'd be winning these more tight, knuckle-dusted games.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I am saying, New Orleans just wants to keep this East Conference interesting. That's it. They just want to keep this thing a complete circus. That's all. Just make it interesting.
And then the other East Conference, DC jumping. I think they've jumped from bottom of the table now to fourth or third with the win in Houston. And that was again another tight game, but DC toughed it out. We've got Nick Boyer coming on the show later on as our first guest. We're going to talk to him about what's going down in Houston. And Houston, we've mentioned with a few teams who are building, and I think we spoke about how much of how bigger fans we are of their franchise and what they're doing, and they're just trying to build a squad now. I know that there's a few conversations being had with other players in the league about pulling them in, without mentioning any names. And I think that they're a team that are very much in transition from, not just having the facilities, but then having a squad of players that can actually go on and really compete. So, I think their sort of title dreams this year are over for Houston, but I think they're sort of building nicely. And I'm still a fan of Houston, but DC needed the win to stay alive in this East Conference, and they delivered.
Yeah, I like you said, Nick Boyer coming on the show soon. He brings some really good insight into that Houston organization. We've been talking about it a lot, so it's really cool to get his perspective firsthand on how things are going. Disappointed for them, but for you all, you're coming in now against a DC team with their, with their chest out, tails up, like they're ready to go. They're going to be welcoming you for a nice Memorial Day hit out down in DC. So a lot to look forward to for you New York guys down there.
And the last game that definitely didn't go away was the Atlanta-Seattle. Seattle's still struggling. We're sort of hoping, praying, fingers crossed that Seattle were going to turn it on. Matt Turner's out, broken foot apparently. So old teammate of mine, Wampy, Juan Pablo is at the back playing 15. But Atlanta look good. Atlanta look real good. They're just a team full of confidence at the moment. They're gritty, they're hard-nosed, and they just got the job done. And to be frank, Seattle just looked second best in most aspects of the game, and it was sort of put to bed. They won quite convincingly, 25-3, I think, in the end. So they looked good, resolute in defense, and then scored the tries and showed the muscle when they needed to convert in the red zone.
Yeah, look, we've talked about it the whole year that Atlanta is just capable of winning games, right? And they seem to be doing a great job at that this season, and especially now as of lately, they seem to be finding their rhythm. We've talked about that too. They're a tough team to play against. They're clinical. They're well drilled. And look, I think I saw, like, I can't remember exactly what it said, but a meme with Mark O'Keefe out there from the Rugby Network, which was like, it was like, what was it? The guarantees in life was like death, taxes, and something about Mark O'Keefe, like probably Mark O'Keefe, like getting over the gain line or something ridiculous. But like, you know, strong meme game from the Rugby Network. Poor game from me. Did not remember exactly what it said, but you know, I mean, he has just been electric down there. I know he was a guest on our show recently, and so I'm psyched to see him playing well. And just in general, I'm happy for the Atlanta team. I think that they have a lot of great people down there and a good organization. And I think that, you know, they're keeping that East Conference exciting, just like everyone else. They're making sure that this is a race to the finish, folks.
Talking of excitement, instead of you and I talking about it, let's just show everyone at home this week's highlights brought to you by the US MLR.
Looks like they're going to go back pod here.
They
Looks like Andrew Garrett lined up at 2.
Bring it down and again to the maul, as we discussed.
Yeah, stagnant though. But they pushed off the mark, which allows the Utah defense to come up. See what they got here. They go out the back here.
Finally out to the backs.
He's so strong.
That's Julian Dominguez. There's no one in front of him. Can he make it? He's a man on, but he scores the try. Nola Gold is first on the board.
Back, Timmy Maupin straightens up his defender, and again, Kyle Rogers. And then this is just all strength. He's like, Julian Dominguez, two players miss him.
Here they come now out at the edge. There's Cruze. He's got Teo. Teo's breaking away now. He's turning on the Jets. He's got one to beat. He does. It looks like he's taking it all the way. Mikey Teo dots it down under the uprights. Clears the pitch, Jeffrey.
Orleans in the interior. Just kind of, you see the hips turn. Interesting angle taken by the last defender here, and Mikey Teo. So his feet are I'd like to find out more what's going on there. Short line out.
Oh, look at this. Look at the technology. Here comes the goal. Will it pay off for them? It does! With a surprise attack.
I think this is coming back, though, Ian. This is coming back because it didn't go 5. Yep, not going to happen. So you can see that Andrew Garrett is definitely about half a meter to a meter inside that 5. Not going to be a try.
1 meter out. Houston not letting him get low. That's the vice captain, Gibbons. They'll try to free it up out in space. Robertson has his man. Dabilos able to dot it down.
Just shy of the try line. You see Tusitala sends it out wide. Robertson with the pass, and give full credit to Jason Robertson.
Bennett under pressure to Foden. Foden does well. Finds refuge back towards the middle of the field. They continue some way, force it, numbers. Bonasso, one more pass. Miranda on the outside. Oh, Bonasso around the corner. Miranda to try. Forwards it around. They'll take one more. This time Bennett goes wide. Quick hands, Foden. Beautiful touch. Forward tie wide. Takabalavu. He's back from injury. The flying Fijian dots it down. Beautiful stuff from New York there.
Flick pass here from Ben Foden. Piece of magic from the former.
We'll try to find that out for you guys.
Same move.
Yeah, big maul here from New England. They march this ball down the field. Side. Still going in New England. And now down the short side, Kumarani. A little space. Takabalavu. He can't rein the Namibian in. A try in the corner for the Free Jacks. It's a heartbreaker.
Great heads-up play. Seeing the space. No one went to break off with the ball.
Boyle short side, quick hands. Morris Lomi though, spills that one. Now it comes down with New York. Pryor, jinking, Pryor, dummies, picks up Foden, quick hands, Bennett. Oh, Harry Bennett, he will bring it around towards the post. He deserves a try after his first 40.
Ifon able to break through. Hos, Carlson, now with Austin White. Quick to the breakdown. Connor Keys into the hands this time. Escura, Bautista Escura across and down. The Buenos Aires native finds the first 5-pointer.
Whether the pass went forward or not as you're getting hit backward, but that line, that pass, Escura just bamboozled the defense. ATL with the first try of the match.
Again, I've really enjoyed playing it.
Well, I'm sure everyone enjoys you being here, so thank you so much, and hopefully maybe we'll see you on the pitch sometime.
I hope so. We'll see.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jessman. Thanks, Luke. And Mark, one thing is for sure, he already has the rugby haircut. That is the Old Glory special right there. And it looks like we're going to go in, and we will. The try, Johan Momsen for Rugby ATL.
Was over the try line through the big man, Momsen.
Atlanta looking for more. They want that try bonus. Not content with a victory. They want that extra point. Little stab kick through Escura. Bautista Escura there, perfectly weighted. And Bautista Escura dots it down for his second try of the match. And beautiful kick, as you say, from Carlos.
All right, folks, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest today. He is one of the most decorated American rugby players. He's a homegrown product. I think he's played for just about every national team there is here as far as rugby goes. He's played almost for just about every MLR team there is as well. He's been around the block a few times with a couple different teams. He's a player that I enjoy watching. He's played a couple different positions in the back line. He's right now dominating the scene down in Texas with the Houston Sabercats. None other than Nick Boyer. Nick, welcome to the Clubhouse.
Thanks, Mike. It's good to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
And you didn't say anything about his luscious locks that I'm very jealous of.
Well, we
were definitely top five, just definitely top five in the league, I think.
Being down in Houston, he must be taking notes from Paul Emmerich. That looks like a very, very Paul Emmerich cactus style haircut that you have going there.
Cactus is understudy. Yeah, it's actually it's a bit of home with me, you know, from California. So I wanted to bring the culture out here, bring it out back out east. So
are they natural highlights, or are they put in, or are they just coming out in the sun?
No, just twice every month I go and get it done just to make sure, you know, I'm ready for the camera.
I love it.
That's outstanding. So Nick, how is life in Houston treating you? I feel like every time I turn on the highlights on the Rugby Network, I feel like I see a clip of you for the Sabercats. Just your support lines this season have been unbelievable. You brought so much energy to that side. I think, Ben, you and I were talking about that recently on our show. Yeah. And we've said we've always been fans of the Sabercats organization. We like what they're doing. And they had a bit of a bumpy road at the beginning there of the season. And then all of a sudden it's like Nick Boyer comes in like hero style, saving the day, and the Sabercats are all of a sudden turned the corner this season. You brought so much energy to that team. How's it been down there in Houston so far?
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate that. It's been a lot of fun. You know, it's been free flowing rugby for the most part, and we've been lucky to score some really good tries. And I've been lucky to be on the end of a few of them just from good sport play from my teammates. But yeah, it's been a fun season. Unfortunately, we haven't quite gotten the record we want. We've dropped a few close games, but I think we're building. We're on the ascendancy, and the culture is growing as well. I think Ben and I were talking about that before. We're starting to lay the foundation with a really good group of players, and I think we're finding our identity now. So I'm excited for the future.
If we can go back to the start of the season, Nick, because I wanted to talk to you about, obviously you started the season with the LA Giltinis, and for whatever reason, things didn't pan out that well. But, you know, I was saying to you earlier before we came on the air, just saying you're the first real in-season transfer that's really been a success story. You and Mika, another guy who left LA and joined the Utah, but you've both been sort of like a spark in your teams. And like Mikey mentioned, Houston, they started off really well with the first game of the season. I think they got the early win. Mike and I then picked them up and gave them the curse. And suddenly they lost 2 straight games, didn't score a try. And both Mike and I were getting worried because, like Mikey said, we're big fans of Houston. We're big fans of what they're doing down there, but they need to start winning games. And then suddenly you came in as a transfer and started, you know, you were the missing formula and started scoring tries, and they were looking good again. But I just wanted to know, like, tell us about your time down at LA, and then also what happened leading you to leave them and joining Houston.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. So LA, long story short, they had signed I was on Colorado Raptors before, and obviously they pulled out of the season just after COVID shortened last season. And so we all went into a dispersal draft, and we got picked by the 2 expansion teams. So LA had drafted 4 or 5 of us, and they'd given us pretty decent contracts, like for coaching gigs and for like marketing roles with the team, just like helping the guys out, because LA is a pretty expensive city. So we were doing 2 jobs instead of just playing full time. We were also, helping develop youth rugby in the area, for instance. And at the time, that wasn't a capped expense. So we were well within budget. Everything was all good. And then 4 months later, I guess MLR put in a cap around those, they call them services agreements. And so LA said, hey, wait a minute, we want to honor these guys' contracts because, we promised them this amount to come live in LA, but we also can't fill out our entire roster if we have these guys on this cap. So the commissioner, to my understanding, had given us a 50% exemption. We were all good up until a couple of weeks before kickoff. And then I guess something changed. A few of the teams in the league didn't vibe with that, and they asked the commissioner to reverse his ruling, and he did. So bit of salary cap troubles, nothing that LA did. In fact, they were very, very good about it all, and they made sure we were looked after, which I appreciate. And yeah, it was definitely emotionally gutting to have to leave a team that you just spent, a year preparing for, in the past few months bonding with. But as you said, very fortunate to end up in a great club in Houston where the boys welcomed me with open arms, and thankfully the rugby was good from the start. So down here playing well, and maybe we should start slagging them off a bit now so we can reverse that curse from you guys. But yeah,
well, it's funny you say that, because obviously a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of all that sort of stuff. And I always say with Mikey, we sort of say when players go to a club and they don't get the success that they instantly were after, and sometimes that's with a disagreement with the coach, sometimes with little injury niggles, and sometimes it takes you to go away to sort of really excel. And obviously that's not been the case with you. Obviously it's just salary cap troubles and moving you on to a different club to free up and make sure they come under that bar. But yeah, in terms of but you slotted into that Houston team very quickly, and you've sort of been that missing piece. How have you done that so quickly? Did you know the coaches and know the guys, or has it just been an easy system to fold into?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think looking back on it, again, the guys were very open and welcoming, so that's always nice when the culture's a good one, a positive one, because I felt at home right away in the club. Didn't have any experience with the coaches beforehand. Didn't know many players, to be honest, but I think just coming in with a fresh set of eyes, I saw what was going on in the first few games. I saw, okay, this is where their attack's struggling. This is where we can fix some things on defense, and just having that outside perspective, I think, and maybe some fresh legs helped out as well, because I just brought maybe a new perspective and a new energy that the club hadn't had for, the past few months of preseason and the first few weeks of season. So I think that might have been just a bit of a mix up there. And then I was just in a good position to come from the outside in and bring what I saw. But just in general, I think, like Mike mentioned, I've had a few clubs in MLR. I've played a lot of rugby around the US. And I think the more travel I have and the more experience I get, the better it is for me, because I can see what works and I can see what doesn't work in terms of how I like to play. So it's been a blessing in disguise, and hope to continue my travels and continue to play rugby everywhere I can.
You said that you like traveling, but I was mentioning to you before, you're actually quite young in terms of, you're only 27. You've probably got another 5 or 6 years in you minimum playing at this level of rugby. And if you want to stick around in the MLR, there might be other opportunities to play overseas and things like that.
Hang on a second, Fodes. Hang on a second. How old are you?
I am 27 years old.
No. Foden, how old are you, Fodes?
I'm 35.
35. Let's do some math here, Fodes.
What did I say? 6
Hold
7
on.
years.
Boyer is 27. Boyer is 27. He's got way more than 5 years, pal. He's got a long future ahead of him.
There's not many who play for as long as I do, Mike. You know that. What I'm saying is, what I'm basically saying is, Nick, is that Mike and I always go on about how we love Houston. We love what they're set up. We love they've built their own pitch. It's top notch. You were mentioning that their gym's up and running. Everything is in one place. They're doing community outreach programs. They're building, and what they're doing is missing winning. But what I see with someone like you, and you're a 9, so a very crucial position. You're American, homegrown, as Mikey said in your introduction. I know they don't have such a thing as a franchise tag in this league yet. But someone like you, I would be slapping one on and be thinking, right, this guy has 8 years, Mikey, just to be 8 years of rugby left in him. We can build a club around this guy. Do you know what I mean? And I hope that you stick around at Houston and they realize we have a real good thing in Nick. We can build a team around him. They've got guys like Sam Windsor, who's been around the block a bit, a very experienced guy, and he's going to be that sort of head, whether it's in the coaching roles and playing as well. But I just think they see you as sort of like a star player that they can build a team around, and you can sort of will encourage other good players, whether from America or from outside of America, to come to the club.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Thanks for saying that. Hopefully we can make it a little bit more than 8 years if you pass on like your skincare routine, your nighttime.
Yes, Boyer.
For a while, but yeah, I mean, I came in to replace Devet Roos, who was a very good player himself. He just had ACL surgery this season, so I can't speak to the long-term ambitions of the club. I hope both Reese and I can stay here because I think we'll work well for each other. We can both push each other and learn off each other. And as you mentioned, Sam's like Mr. Houston. He's been around since the get-go, and he's played every position I think in the back line this year, and he's done extremely well. Yeah, I think as you mentioned, we're starting to get that foundation laid. I think players will want to come to the city because I don't think I mentioned yet, but the city of Houston itself it's a really, really good place to be. I mean, it's pretty hot and humid, but I don't mind the warm weather, to be honest. It's nice to be out here instead of snow in Colorado. So good place to live, great culture, good rugby fan base, and also a lot of young players coming up right now too. We got a lot of guys who just graduated college or American homegrown talent from around the Houston area pushing through. So if we can get a few more key players from overseas, guys like you who've played really, really high level, and they can just bring that extra, top 2 inches of rugby knowledge to the game, I think we'll have a very, very strong team moving forward, and looking to build the platform for that in the second half of this season, so that next year we can really make a good push for genuine title contention.
Nick, you bring up an interesting point there. So you come from Los Angeles earlier in the season, as we mentioned, which is like loaded with star-studded talent. I mean, you look through that lineup and it's like the who's who of the rugby world, basically, right? Yeah. And then you go to Houston, where it's just a group of effectively unsung heroes, right? Like no big names as far as I'm aware of. There's no one that's down there. There's no Matt Giddos. There's no Adam Ashley Coopers, right? There's Nick Boyers of the world down there, just like your grinding, hardworking type of player. Tell us more about, you said there's some young players coming through the system. Tell us more about people we should be watching down in Houston that maybe the average fan that's watching MLR maybe hasn't picked up on yet, because they're not the Matt Giddos getting all the media attention. Who are those people that we should be aware of?
So yeah, putting him on the spot here. I'm going to have a few dodgy glances at training tomorrow when this comes out. But I think one of them, Bronson Tellis, he's South African born, but American raised, I think. Big boy. He's like 6'4", 250, 60, flanker second row type. And he's just come out of college. I think he originally was signed with Dallas, but because of the situation there, he came to us. He's a good one to look out for just because of his physical frame. I think he'll be great once he gets the confidence to play at this level. Jack Hidalgo's a guy actually came up from the academy. He's been playing on the wing for us, and I think last week against Old Glory, he had a breakout game. Very athletic and just a hard running winger, great in the air. He's one to look out for. And then actually not American but Canadian, but Robbie Povey, my fly half partner. I think if we get him good go forward ball as a 9 in a forward pack, he's one of the most dangerous 10s in the league. So I like his style of play. I think he'll be one to watch going forward, not just in MLR, but with Canada as well.
Does it pain you a little bit that you're helping the Canadian 10 get better at his game? Does it like is it like little bit, does it hurt, even though Houston's doing well? No, I'm kidding. I love to see those guys be so successful down here. I really do. But obviously there's that rivalry that you and I know very well between the U.S. and Canada. But speaking of that, you've had a really good career with the U.S. Like, you've played on the 7th circuit, you played in the 15th circuit, you were an All-American out of college. So, you've run the gauntlet of representative rugby here in the U.S., but you've done it in a couple of different positions as well, right? So you've kind of danced around the back line a little bit. And you mentioned that earlier, that some players on your team are doing the same. First question on that, along those lines, where is your preferred position? You seem to have found a home there at 9. Is that where you like to be in an ideal world?
Yeah. Number 9's my bread and butter.
So that's your bread and butter thing. Okay, so then side question, because obviously if you're a utility player, it opens up a bit more doors for you sometimes, right? Like there's that, you see Nick Boyer as this player who's a great 9, but if you need it, he could play wing in a pinch, right? Because he's a good runner. He understands the game really well, really good rugby IQ.
Mikey, that's
how do you go about preparing?
That's how you end up like me. That's how you end up like me. I used to be a 9. I did all the age group stuff, 16, 18s, 21, 7s. England A, then next thing, your coach says, yeah, why don't you have a few games at fullback? And then next thing, you're getting called up to the national squad as a different position, and you never play in 9 again.
Lucky for me, I guess, Foz, they moved you out of 9, or I would have been out of a job in New York early on. That would have been me done. But like it's interesting for me because I never had to worry about anything else, right? As a 9, it's like I've only ever played there, so I go to practice every day. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what what's expected of me, right? But for you, it's like you're kind of bouncing around on the radar sometimes. How do you go about at that level, the test level, the professional level, preparing every day for, like, I could be at 9, I could be on the wing, I have to learn different systems, how do you go about preparing differently? Is there a difference in how you prepare mentally or physically?
That's a really good question, actually. I haven't given too much thought to it. I think rugby is rugby at some point once you get in the field and you start playing. I mean, obviously you have different perspectives when you're out on the edge or when you're bossing the forwards around. I think when I'm wing, obviously I take a backseat in terms of I'm not driving the tempo of the game as much, but I'll look to insert myself wherever I can and how, like build a blindside attack or coming off like a little taxi plus line off the 9 or something like that, just to give them some help, because I know what it's like to be a 9, having your head in the ruck and then not having any options when you look up. So I definitely bring some of the knowledge I have from scrum half to playing other positions in the back line. But I guess, honestly, I think it's just about playing an up-tempo game for me. It's just about finding the space to attack wherever that is. I like to be creative, and I like to push the pace of the game. So if I'm on the wing or if I'm playing 9, I like to just add energy to the ball wherever I am, but not too much different in my mental process. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. I just I could picture myself standing out there on the wing, constantly trying to put myself in the 9 shirt and be like, what's he gonna do next? Let me go get the ball. Like, this is what we should expect.
I tell you what's different. I tell you what is different from there's a difference from what Nick does, because Nick is primarily a 9, and then he bounces to the wing when they need him.
Right.
But if he played a whole year on the wing and then moved back to 9, he would notice it in the lungs and the legs, 100%, because it's a different kind of fitness when you play at 9.
Yeah.
Than when you play back 3. It really is. And so, like, that's one thing that I realized when I made the transition to fullback. I was like, Jesus, like I couldn't play 9 again, because you're used to like sort of coasting and then sprinting, whereas playing 9 is sort of like a constant burst, and then you get a break. Although it's not like 100% in terms of like top speed, you like sort of running at like 80% all the time. Yeah. And that's why your 9s are so fit. Like when we do the Broncos and stuff like that, your 9s are usually winning. Whereas you wouldn't see me winning any Broncos anymore, Mikey. So I think the biggest difference is fitness. And I think when you really like lock in a position and you start to play there more and more, you'll get that fitness from playing the games there. And then when suddenly you move back to the old one, you're like, oh, your lungs are gone, and it's completely different. And like you said, Nick, as well, the tempo, you're driving the tempo, you're barking, talking a lot more. Whereas on the edge, you sort of insert yourself every now and then, and your comms are a little bit, more just direct, like the space rather than organizing defenders and stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great shout, actually. And that's one thing I've also noticed too after the COVID break is the intensity of the conditioning. Getting back in game shape was a bit tough. Yeah. I don't know if you watched the first game, but I had a few cramps in the game in San Diego. I had to hobble off one-legged because I was just locked up. But yeah, there's a lot of running at 9. That's one thing I forgot to mention. So.
And talking of fitness, Nick, you've played a bit of 7s. You've gone on the series circuit with the Eagles team. How do you find your 7s experience, and do you think it developed you as a player in terms of pushing you on to the next level?
I'm sorry, you cut out there on the last part of your question.
I was saying you obviously played a bit of 7s, and I was just saying, do you feel that playing on the circuit with the American team in the 7 series has developed you as a player and helped you develop for the MLR?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a really good experience there, being in the training center for a year. I think Mike Friday's got a really good program with great foundational skills. Like he and Chris Brown, when he was there, were really, really harping on the fundamentals. And for me, the way I like to play 9 as well is I like to have a bit of a crack myself once in a while. And I used to have a problem with, when I got isolated, I wouldn't have great contact skills necessarily. Like on the ground, I wouldn't have the best ball placement. But that's one part of my game that 7s especially helped me with, was not only the footwork to set up a contact point, but also like how to work on the ground, buy the extra half second for your support, look for the offload and just keep the flow going. So definitely some translational skills there. 9's a bit more specialist. I'd say wing obviously has more crossover with the open field style of 7s, but it's been really good for me. And, I like to play some pickup 7s whenever I can, or maybe a social tournament here and there.
Well, they've just mentioned that they're bringing in a pro league sevens competition in America. So, and I know that obviously Nick was away with me in the Bermuda doing the 10s, and I hear that's starting again. So suddenly we've got the MLR. You've obviously got the Eagles rugby if you're called upon, but then we have the 10s, we have the 7s. Seems like a lot of rugby's popping off now in America. And in your spare 6 months that you'll get when the league finishes, could you see yourself, what kind of rugby do you see yourself playing? Maybe a bit of 7s, maybe a bit of 10s.
Yeah, it's a tough choice to make, right? Obviously, got some good memories from Bermuda, so it's always a good draw. Yeah, I mean, if the USA comes knocking, which God willing, that would be the number one choice. It's always a huge honor to play for your country, as Mike knows. Mr. America over there, he's done it. How many caps do you have? What, 60, 70?
Yeah, not quite.
Feels like it though.
The body feels like it. The body feels like it.
Like that many.
Yeah.
Did 3 World Cups though, Mikey, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I did. And a lot of our games early on for a while, they were a lot of A games. We played like a lot of the Saxons games in Ireland today, and we played Churchill Cup stuff. So it's like, caps wise, it was very obscure as to how that stuff all worked. They were giving us all A games for a couple of years there.
So another thing as well, you just mentioned playing for America. Is that's your main ambition still, Nick, to push your way back into hopefully a World Cup position in the next, how many, 2 years? Is it 2 years away now? Trying to force your way back into that, playing MLR rugby?
I mean, yeah, that'd be a dream come true, obviously, to represent my country at the World Cup. That was, I was striving for that in 2019, and unfortunately just missed out on selection there. But I think, as you mentioned to it before the podcast, there's only so much a player can control. It's not always about what you're doing. Sometimes just about circumstance, about what the team needs at a higher level. Maybe you're not that guy. So I try and keep my goals now within my own control. So just right now, just focus on playing the best rugby I can with Houston week in and week out. And then if that comes along, that's great. It's a big cherry on top, but again, it's out of my control. So I'm just trying to focus on what's right in front of my face right now.
Boy, I got a question for you. Actually, I was going to ask you about your goals, but you answered that there, so that was awesome, because I'm excited to see where you develop over the course of the next 10 years. I think, Fodes. Like, come on, I was pushing 35, 36 at that time. So Boyer's got plenty of time left.
Is that you telling me I've got another year? Is that
Wait, who keeps telling you that? Who keeps telling you that?
One more year.
Yeah. But so you've played, and you mentioned that you're a well-traveled rugby player. You played for a bunch of different clubs, specifically in the MLR. You've been with Colorado, San Diego, Los Angeles, and now Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Ben and I have only ever been with New York in the MLR, talk to us a little bit, and for the viewers out there, talk to us about the differences that you find in these organizations, whether it's from a cultural perspective or whether it's a strategy perspective or a facilities perspective, like whatever it is. Are there parallels that you notice? Are there major distinctions that you pick up on? Like, tell us about what that experience is like.
Yeah, man, you're coming with the good questions today. That's there's definitely, obviously, just from year 1 to year 4 in MLR, there's been a big change in facilities as well. Like Legion just built out their own gym, which I'm kind of gutted I'm not there for. It looks amazing, right by the ocean. It's hard to beat. But when I was there, it was like, spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours in the car just by necessity. You had to drive to your gym from your apartment up to like the offices, to your field, back to your apartment. And it was just, it was a slog. So that took a lot of energy out of us. But they've obviously remedied that. So that's a big shift for them. Colorado was great because they had, they had all their own facilities in one place. The one part that I did not like was, 2 parts. It's turf, and it was freezing, so it was frozen turf. So it was extra hard. And yeah, that was a bit brutal on the body, but in terms of style of play in Colorado, it was much more open than San Diego, which is very like structured and like very organized. And Colorado was more like play what you see, which is also a good balance. And we had like Rene Ranger bringing some of that All Black experience in there to help with that and be kind of a rock in the midfield. LA, like you mentioned, some of the best rugby players in the world, like Gitto and Adam Ashley Cooper and DTH Bendemer, like those guys just on a different level in terms of their timing and their skills. And that rubs off on you, obviously, even if I was just there for a cup of coffee. And then now on to Houston, which is, as we mentioned, a developing squad. And I got a lot of young players, and now I found myself in a position where I can maybe give back a bit more on the knowledge side, which is I'm changing my hats a bit from a student to maybe a bit more of a driver of the culture. But yeah, it's been a good journey so far. And like you said, it's been very diverse in terms of setups and in terms of playing styles. Obviously, each place has its own culture too. And Texas is a very unique place in terms of.
Speaking of unique, what about the fans, Nick? You've been in those 4 spots. Tell us about did you have a chance to play in Los Angeles with the fans there yet, right? Or was it before they allowed fans in?
That was before they allowed fans. So yeah, I missed that.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Both years and you're in the crowd. That's unfortunate because childhood Nick would have loved that, but yeah.
That would have been good. But I know like the Legion have their what are they, like the Legion people that come out with the shields and the cannons going or whoever else, and like Colorado has made a really nice home there in Glendale. They have like a really sort of local diehard fan base, it seems like. And then the Sabercats, I mean, what an incredible venue that is. I mean, folks, when we went down there, that was amazing. And they're really starting to build stuff there too. So have you noticed the difference in the fan bases in the different cities that you played at?
Yeah, definitely minor differences. And San Diego did a great job year 2 when I was there, just like really bringing the local community in. There was a bunch of like activities for kids up on the top plaza, and we're winning a lot of games too, so it was easy to get bums in seats. So it was a pretty cool vibe there. But Houston, I think I mentioned earlier, it's also great. Every game there's a couple of big tailgates in the parking lot. It's a great facility as well. Everything's contained there. Everything's owned by the club too, which is amazing. They have youth games before exhibition games. They have our academy game in the stadium, which for me, that's big because these guys, like, they're not professional. They're club players who are sacrificing a lot of their time and energy to come maybe have a crack at playing MLR, and then to give them a chance to play their Saturdays on the home pitch on the, in the stadium. That's pretty cool. So we have them before us, and then they come and support us afterwards. So it's got a really holistic feel. Like, it's a big community behind the team, and it feels permanent. So that's a really positive aspect of the Houston side.
So speaking of Houston, hold on, folks. Let me get one more question, and then I'll let you go. I know I've been hogging the mic here for a bit, folks, but I have something interesting. So because I love Houston as a city, right? I played down there a few times, a couple test matches in the past. They put on a great show. They've packed out BBVA Compass Stadium, right? I mean, it's just an incredible sports city. But I have to be honest and say that as a 9, I had like some of the worst nightmares playing in Houston because it's just so hot. It is just brutally hot. And every time a forward, no matter if it's 7 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, every time somebody tucks the ball into their sweat-soaked jersey and then puts it on the ground, like to pass off the ground, it's like literally trying to grab out a bar of soap. I mean, and we're coming up on June, and these were all the June tests that was like in Houston. Are you experiencing any of that yet down in Houston? Are you having nightmares like that, or am I alone in this?
Before you answer the question, Mikey, Nick, Mikey, you played in Wales.
No, wait a second.
You played in Wales, where it's like sleeting, raining, windy, like the worst conditions, and you're moaning about a bit of sweat.
I'll tell you what, there was no comparison. I will take that wet Welsh weather over that Houston heat, man. That was rough. That heat was rough. That was tough. Are you experiencing any of that, or am I by myself here, Nick? Come on, tell me I'm not totally alone on this one.
I'm right there with you, man. Last game, it was actually Welsh conditions. It was up and down some rain too. So on top of the heat, it was pretty drizzly as well. And it was the ball's hard to hold on to. Definitely not a 9's dream, but get used to it. I think the Rhino, is it sponsored by Rhino? I might be getting that wrong, but the balls we have, they're like especially made to be like a greased up dinosaur egg once it gets wet. So it's always fun. Challenges your skills a bit, makes you work in the grip train. But yeah, it's just, it's same for both 9s. So I guess you can get your opposite number back, a little cheeky slap of the hand or something. But
all right, good. I feel a lot better. Thank you. That makes me feel better. Fodes is attacking me because he thinks that I'm complaining a bit too much. But Nick, thanks for going to bat for me, man. I appreciate that.
Nick, I wanted to ask you about, obviously you mentioned one of the clubs you were at was at Glendale, and Glendale was the hub on the home of American rugby. And I'm guessing that you were planning to stay there before they sort of folded. What conversations did you have with them when they did fold? And can you give us an insight? Are we going to see Glendale come back into the league at some point? Is Glendale still the hub of rugby in America, or is it going to move on to somewhere else, do you feel?
That's honestly can't answer that question for them. I don't know what their intent is. I know I will speak to this. The coaching staff there is very, very dedicated to making rugby in America the best it can be. Obviously, Luke Gross, Mikey would have played with him. Great rugby man through and through, great USA representative through and through. And he's doing a great job of building crossover athletes into potential rugby athletes, which is, I know that's been a goal of theirs for a while. It's been a vision of a lot of Americans, is saying, why can't we just tap this athletic pool and bring them into rugby? Then we'd be the sleeping giant awoken. And I wish them the best with that. I think they're pursuing that path for a while now, and they've done fairly well, to be fair to them. They've had some good games for some good club teams around the league. But yeah, I couldn't tell you where they're going. Honestly, I think it's a bit too cold for me there. Just playing rugby in January outside when it's, snowing, I can't do it. I'm a California kid. So I'm happy down in the heat in Texas, but yeah, I wish them the best with whatever they do, and I hope they stick around rugby, because that is a pristine facility, and it's got a lot of American rugby tradition embedded in it as well.
Well, you'd never know from looking at you, Nick, that you're a California boy. I'll tell you that. I tell you, can you go surfing and stuff in Houston? Is there any? I don't even. This is the Englishman in me. Houston got any beaches or anything like that, or any lakes, or I don't know? Can you go surfing, skiing, or water skiing, wakeboarding, any of that sort of stuff going on in Houston?
It's pretty dismal. It's pretty bad outlook. Unfortunately, the nearest is Galveston, but it's it's a nice muddy brown water texture. So I'm trying to stay away from those waves. I think South Padre Island, like 5 hours south, has some decent swell and some clean waves, but haven't made it that far. But Lake Travis is good.
South Padre, I've seen on some of the forecasts that when it picks up in those areas, that could be some good fun. But I didn't realize it was 5 hours away. That's not good fun.
Mikey's a surfer. Nick. I don't know if you know that. Maybe yeah. I could tell just looking at Nick that he's definitely a surfer. Now the way you tell the swells and all that sort of stuff, I'm like, yeah, he's definitely surfing.
Well, Nick, when you come up to New York, we'll go out. So we'll go out and we'll get some waves here. We'll show you what the East Coast waves are like. They're not like those California waves on the West Coast. They're not quite as forgiving as your stuff out left.
No doubt. Wait, wasn't Jaws shot on off the New York coast or something like that? Wasn't that where it was originally?
Yes, Martha's Vineyard. That's what I was about to say. I'll watch you from the safety of the land and just cheer you on. I'll tell you if any big dark circles start circling you. I'll be on sharp.
You a longboarder?
Me? I have a longboard, but I was out there yesterday. Actually, we had a real good swell over the weekend. And I took out my 510. So I have a 510 thruster that I enjoy kicking around.
Nice, man. So you're
young at heart, Mike. I got the 510 kicking around swells. Look at him, just love it.
Oh, there's nothing like it, really. And when speaking of California, the season that I spent there, my first year out of school was Belmont Shore. I mean, there wasn't professional rugby then, right? So there was no Major League Rugby. Back then, it was the Super League was the pinnacle or the apex of American rugby, but. I mean, it might as well have been. They helped us out. There was a couple of us that came from the East Coast. I was living with a couple of guys from Philly and Pennsylvania that played for the Eagles. Andy Ryland, who now runs USA Football. Ben Wiedemer, an enormous lock out of Philly, who played for the national team, was also a wide receiver at LaSalle down in Philly. But that was a life, man. You would wake up in the morning. You would go surfing early. I was like a stone's throw from Huntington Beach. I would go down, catch a couple waves, have breakfast, go for a workout with Mike Kirkus, get to know the Eagles 10 when I was a young kid, just sort of pick his brain, hang around him. That was it, folks. I'm telling you,
Tell me you had Nick's haircut though. Tell me you had Nick's haircut.
No, I can't pull that off. I can't do it. I can't pull that off, folks. It doesn't work for me. It's not my look. It's not it. I would stick out way too bad. You get that dark long hair with that accent. I don't think that's gonna go far for me.
I'll ask you a last question from me. Just with Houston, what do you see? How do you see it playing out? We're over the halfway stage. You mentioned that you're just trying to sort of win games, grow, but how do you see this second half of the season panning out for the Sabercats? Because obviously, you've shown that you can score points. One thing that me and Mikey always did say about Houston is that if you could you've shown that you can score points now in every game, and you can score even when you played LA. You were the first guys who really rocked LA, and me and Mike were both thinking, is that Nick just playing out of his skin just to sort of give the middle finger up to his old team? But you'd been that missing thing for them to scoring points. One thing maybe is defense, maybe tighten up the defense a little bit, and you've shown you can score tries. But how do you see the second half of the season? Where do you look to get better, and what you're looking to try to do in the second half of the season?
Yeah, that's really good analysis. Actually, we brought in a center from Wales, Joe Thomas, my roommate. Actually, he's tucked away back there. You can't see him, but anyway, he's probably listening right now. So he wants a good shout out. He's done wonders for our defense out wide, just in that 13 channel, organizing, making sure we know when we can go hard, when we have to kind of hold our feet and push into the edge.
Yeah.
So actually, the past 2 games against Toronto and against DC, I think we've had a much better defense. Unfortunately, one of the themes for us, and I think this is the sign of the maturity we were talking about earlier, is we fixed one thing in our game, like we fixed our maul defense, for instance, and we fixed our overall defense, but then we maybe dropped off on our attacking shape a bit. So now we're trying to get all those pieces in place because, we were red hot. We're scoring points pretty much at will whenever we had the ball. And now we're getting a bit of a slog. So we're really trying to focus on, creating more dynamic options in attack, getting that go forward ball and clean ball. For me, it's frustrating when there's players lying all over it and it's like, get those guys out of there so we can just play it away quick. Those are kind of our focus points now is getting that attacking form back while maintaining and elevating our defensive platform. And I think just citing San Diego and Atlanta as well, creating offensive pressure from defense, because I think those teams have scored well from really having dominant defense and creating turnovers. And if we can add that to our game as well as lift our attacking game, I think we'll be a really dangerous team and have a good platform for next season. So that's kind of my personal, what I think we're aiming at and just what I've heard from the team as well. Yeah, that's where we're going.
No more questions from me, Nick. Just a message of congratulations for kind of putting your stamp on not only the number 9 shirt down there in Houston and making a huge impact that's been very noticeable across the league, but for putting your hand up as being, without question, one of the best 9s that's out there right now in the U.S. So I have no doubt you have a lot to look forward to. I'm really excited to see you not only successful for the Sabercats, but also for the Eagles in the coming years, hopefully. I have no doubt that you will if you keep playing the way that you're playing. It's exciting. Thank you for what you're doing for rugby in the U.S. Thank you for what you're doing for rugby in Houston, for sure. And I'm looking forward to watching you play through the rest of the season. So thanks for coming on the Clubhouse, and all the best to you for the rest of the season down there. Tell everyone down in Houston we said hi.
And thank you for your hair as well. Thank you for staying strong with the long hair.
I've got you, man. We'll keep it going. Thank you guys. I mean, amazing being on here with you guys. You're legends in your own rights. So thanks for giving me the chance to speak and for asking really good questions. Appreciate the opportunity. And Mike, we will definitely make it out for a wave when we come to New York. I'm looking forward to that.
Tell me, man. I would love that. I would really enjoy that. Just let me know.
Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair.
So, Mikey, it is my pleasure to introduce our next guest. He's someone who's going to get the temperatures rising of our female fans, I feel. It's another Nick, this time from the rugby league world. He played for many years over in Australia in the NRL, finishing his career of all places in Castleford, back in England, for Castleford Tigers, before making the transition to a world-famous model of all things, where he has appeared for Abercrombie and Finch, and most famously as the face of Invictus by Paco Rabanne, is none other than Nick Youngquest. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, mate. It sounds pretty interesting, doesn't it? Going from from Castleford to the catwalk. There you go. Never thought of it like that, but definitely been an interesting journey, buddy.
Let's start right there. Let me start you right there, because I know a few rugby league boys. I know how cutthroat that environment is. And, if you played rugby league, Mikey, Petrie, you're made of sterner stuff. They're pretty hard nuts there, but they're pretty cutthroat in their banter and stuff. So talk to me about that. What were your mates saying to you when you went, you know what, lads, I'm gonna pack the boots up and I'm gonna take to the catwalk, and you're gonna start seeing me on on Abercrombie and Finch boards, and then next thing you're in your underpants holding a trophy, being the face of Invictus. Tell me about how that happened and the amount of shit you must have got from your old teammates.
Well, as you can imagine, I don't know how else to say this, but I was always the pretty boy, right? So I was always kind of marginalized anyway, right? Throughout my career, and I married an American girl actually, and we're moving to New York City, and it wasn't as though I specifically thought, okay, I'm going to go and do this modeling thing, right? It was something that I had in my back pocket. I'd done a bunch of stuff, advocating for social causes and stuff throughout my career, and raising money for different things, and I was like, all right, it's probably, whilst I was finishing university at the time, I can probably give it a crack. Let's go to New York and have a go. But I was actually, in all honesty, I was fucking shitting myself. I'm like, hang on a second, I'm playing on the wing for Castleford Tigers. Anyone who doesn't know, well, no one actually probably knows Castleford Tigers in the US. It's a town of about 30,000 people, and there's no other way to describe it. It's a bit rough around the edges, all right? So I'm running down the wing one week, and then I'm going to New York City. So it's not exactly the same, not the same kind of places. Let's be fair. But I got lucky, mate. There was the guys at Paco Rabanne were looking for a sports guy, and I literally retired in 2012. And 1 month after, I went back to the UK to pack up my house, and they asked me to come to Paris, and the rest is history, man. Right time, right place kind of idea. But it's been great. I've been so fortunate to kind of transition very quickly into another profession, another career so quickly, and a vastly different career, but a career that also kind of amplified my platform to keep on doing what I was, doing when I was playing footy, and support the causes I want to support, and really continue my platform and leverage that in a way to help others, So that's been probably the best experience for it. So.
Folks, your green sweatshirt is like leaking into your face. You're green with envy in his modeling career. That's like, you should have retired in 2012.
I know, that's what I was thinking. Damn it, you.
I'm
hanging on with my fingertips. What I was going to say is, Nick, I mentioned obviously your mates probably were getting stuck into you, as you do, is like banter in rugby, but actually they would have just been as green as me with envy because, like you mentioned, you finished your career in Castleford, which isn't the most glamorous place in the world, but I bet you all your guys we sort of like, oh yeah, giving you a bit of stick, but actually they're all like, oh God, I wish I was in LA shooting a video with other beautiful models and going out in LA and taking meetings in New York and all that lifestyle and the glitz and glam that comes with sort of being a model. So how did they give you a bit of stick? Did they try and get stuck into you, and you just sort of bat it back straight away? You know how it is in the change.
They fucking still get stuck into me. It's that funny. But I guess I didn't have a leg to stand on either, really. If you think about it, I played on the wing, right, predominantly for throughout my career. And most of the guys in rugby wasn't even about what I look like. It was like that I was a winger. They say that wingers hang out with football players, and most of them say that you should just cut the 10-meter lines off and just have centers and fuck the wingers off. So I was from the start. I was fucked, really. So but it's it's all in good fun, right? And I guess some of the people as well. Now with what I do with Athletes for Life and stuff, I've been lucky to transition so quickly. They're probably even more interested in how you're able to do that, and I think that it's a big thing that's happening in sport now. Some of the stats surrounding NFL players and basketball players in the US is really astounding. So I think that now the ones that were giving me the most shit are probably they come knocking now, and they want to kind of understand this idea of cultivating multiple forms of identity, if you will. And so it's all fun and games, but it's mate, as I said, I copped it my whole fucking career now. Before I'd even played a first team game, I advocated for the LGBTQ community and did a gay magazine. I was on the front cover of it before I'd even played a first team game. So it was, the writing was on the wall. I was always going to be hung out to dry.
And you mentioned you retired when you were like 29, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Was that from injury or from choice and other opportunities popping up, or because I know that you're playing really well at Castleford. I know it's not the most glamorous place in the world, but you're actually, I saw your stats. You scored like 40 tries and 50 appearances or something like that. So you were playing real good rugby out there, even though you were at the tail end of your career.
Yeah, I was probably one of those players that kind of hit my straps later in life. But it just come to the point where, the game's so taxing on your body, as you know, mate. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this for another year. There was a contract on the table, and I made the decision. And looking back now, I'm glad I made that decision. It's a tough decision, and to step out into the wilderness almost, and to really make yourself vulnerable, and it's hard for athletes sometimes. Sometimes that there's always that 1 year too long, right?
Yeah.
That we talk about, and I didn't want to do that. And at the time, there were some young outside backs coming through at Cass that I knew that were going to step into the role anyway, and some of those guys are still playing for the team now. So I think it's it's about sitting down and looking at the bigger picture. We all love sport, we all love rugby union, rugby league, but it's not the be all and end all as well. And you've got a long life to live after you do retire. And it's not an easy decision, but it was probably the best one for me. Yeah.
Nick, I see the surfboard kicking there in the back of your car, so I'm going to use a bit of surf lingo for you. I'm a self-proclaimed rugby league kook. Like, I am just an absolute rugby league kook. Genuinely, like I know it exists. The only two rugby league people that I've ever really had any sort of interaction with, one is Voden and I's teammate Luke Hume, who he love Lukey, but he talked about his past, and then Phil Bailey, who you may have crossed paths with at some point in the rugby league community. Yeah, teammate of mine. He was what's that?
I played with Bales in 2003 in my first year in the first team at Cronulla, so I know Bales well. Yeah,
Bales was our defense coach for the USA Eagles at the last World Cup that I was playing in. So he great dude. We played together one season before that. But it sounds like there's a lot happening in the U.S. with specifically here in my home in Brooklyn. I think you're involved in the Brooklyn Kings, and I'm a Brooklyn guy, so I'm pretty psyched about it. I've seen a lot of things happening with rugby league and professional rugby in the U.S. I mean, professional rugby in general seems to be taking off with MLR, sevens just being announced, professional rugby league being announced. I mean, talk to us a little bit about that venture and your involvement in it, and where you see the rugby landscape overall in America right now.
Well, it's there's no surprise that you guys love the sport, the contact and the brutal nature of it. It's let's be fair, very similar in many regards to American football, but also vastly different, right? I think you ever speak to any American, they're like, "Oh my God, man, you guys don't wear pads? You're fucking crazy, bro." Like, mate, I can settle down. You know what it's like, right? But yeah, I think, mate. For me, my involvement with the Brooklyn Kings was really, really fantastic. I really genuinely never thought that I would be involved in coaching or the administrative side of any team. But I felt like, having had so much experience in the sport and moving to the US and meeting some of the guys who loved it so much, the American dudes, I was like, I think it's that I should go and lend my hand, even though I did play on the wing. Some of the American guys still give me shit as well. They're like, "Why would I listen to you? You played on the wing." I was like, "Settle down, brother." But I really wanted to, take my, not expertise, but my understanding of the game and try and help them. And it's been fascinating, to be honest with you, because you see some transformations of people that, rugby league always will be, even when it does establish itself more in the US, it will be the kind of the lower kind of economic kind of areas are probably going to flourish the most, and I think of someone like a friend of mine that played for the Kings, O'Dane Brown. Like, he didn't get to go to university. He lives in the projects with his grandmother, but the impact that the sport's had on him has left like has had a profound impact on myself. I think that's where rugby league has to get better in the US. Rugby union has a solid foundation. I know that there's over 100 universities now playing rugby union. That's correct. Is that correct?
I wouldn't know the stat explicitly. Yeah, but
It's like all rugby, in every aspect. Rugby league, sevens, rugby just going in all high school, all colleges. It's all kicking off.
Yeah. Well, I think that the rugby union is doing a far better job at the grassroots level, right? If you have the inception in the colleges, and then you create this kind of grassroots idea where you can see a pathway to the pros, if you will, right? I think that's where rugby union is going to really flourish, right? And rugby league oftentimes has been probably a little bit lackluster in setting those foundations, and we'd probably be more likely to get, the older players from overseas coming and filling lots of spots. And I don't think that's going to have it's not sustainable long term. We need more of the O'Dane Browns. We need more of these American guys coming through a system which they end up in the pros, and you're telling a story about this guy, like he went to high school and he was playing rugby league, and now he's playing for this pro team. I don't think that it's going to be useful long term to just continue to get Australians and Brits over and fill these spots and take all the money as well. I don't think it has usefulness long term, right? I'm great friends with Adam Ashley Cooper. He's obviously playing out there now at LA.
He's taking all the money.
I think he'll probably. Sorry.
And him and Gitz have taken all the money out there.
Yeah.
I mean, Adam Gilchrist's pockets are pretty deep, so.
So it's like, it's invaluable, the experience and the know-how of the game that Gitz and Swoop are given to those guys. But I think, in both of the leagues, you have to get to a point where it's like, you would love to see just the all-American teams, right? Yeah. And flourishing. And then that's going to translate to World Cups, to the sevens at the Olympics and stuff like that, right? So I think that's where rugby league may have some issues. I'm not involved explicitly anymore because I'm not living in the US. And to be honest with you, the politics of the rugby league kind of did my head in. I mean, this is probably the third time that someone's tried to do a pro league, Mm-hmm. So yeah, some people's trying to take advantage of the growth of the rugby union and trying to translate that to rugby league. I hope it works. As I say, I really do hope it works because of the stories like O'Dane, as I mentioned. But I am also, I'm wary of people's expectations or why they're doing it, right?
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point actually, though, because like I said, I don't know a lot about it, but rugby here from the MLR standpoint with rugby union, there's been a lot of interest in it. Like you said, and we just had Nick Boyer on the show previously, and we were talking about Colorado, the Colorado Raptors team that had folded, and how now they're focusing more on crossover athletes to get them into and playing rugby union specifically. But I mean, again, I know nothing about rugby league. Nick, would you think that as a crossover athlete, these college wrestlers that are playing in, sport at university in America, or these football players that are coming out playing American football, that is, right? Do you think that they would have possibly better transitional opportunities into the game of rugby league than maybe rugby union? I mean, how do you see that? Is there a real opportunity there for these young American kids? Like, that's the market that you want to really tap into first and foremost?
Yeah, I reckon there's definitely a practical application of these the skills that they're acquiring in lots of different sports, And let's be fair, like American athletes, we know like some the best athletes in the world, right? You have the biggest pool of athletes, and my worry would be is to along their participation with the sports that they're participating in, whether that be American football, wrestling, as you said, wrestling, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That they had start to acquire some skills around rugby league at an early stage, right? Early adoption of skill acquisition is going to be key, right? So you can't pick up a fucking rugby league ball at 21 and expect to know the game, But so we have to, at a grassroots level, like you have to be starting to are they playing at a different? Does the rugby league plays at a different time than the MLR? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
it does, right?
Yeah.
So it makes total sense that maybe some of the players from the MLR are also playing rugby league, right? Mm-hmm. Ben, it's like you could have gone and played for Castleford as well, right?
On the wing.
But yeah, I think once the competition hits its straps, you really learning some skills, understanding the game is going to be crucial, because the game, as I said, American football is vastly different than rugby league, as is rugby union, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a hard one. I wouldn't want to be tackling that if I was the CEO or the people trying to push the game forward, as in rugby league forward in the US. But yeah, how do we get the early adoption? how do we get the game in front of younger people's eyes with the pros for sure, but from a practical standpoint as well, you know, how they playing rugby league at high school or in university, and that's where the MLR is going to really flourish, because you guys have already have the systems in place that are filtering down. So
wait, for one follow-up question on that, and I know, Fodes, I see your mouth going open, and I'm sorry I keep jumping in there, but I'm so psyched about this because
I'm just trying to move the conversation away from rugby. I've just got the modeling question.
I have one more rugby question for you, Nick. I got one more rugby question for you, because you bring up the grassroots, and that's something that, as a rugby union player, is very near and dear to my heart in the States, right? And we talked about that with Boyer. Fodes, we've talked about it on our show with the great job that the MLR teams are doing at really trying to get out in the communities and grow the game. And I think it does speak volumes to the future, like you said, Nick, for the game here. But again, not knowing anything about rugby league, is rugby? Like, if there are kids picking up a rugby ball at the age of 6 or 7 or 8 in the United States, are they still kind of getting that rugby league gist that when they're 21, if they want to, they can go play rugby league? Or is it totally different?
So you make a great point. I don't know. Is there a way to like cross collaborate almost, right? The MLR and the new rugby league in the US, like, is there some sort of cross collaboration that can happen that, like, let's grow together as rugby, right? And then kids might find that they like rugby league better, you know, or they might like rugby union better, right? So I'm not sure. It's a hard one, man. It's really, really hard. Because the games are. Sorry.
I was going to say, the interesting thing is that America is probably the only country you could do that, because you know, in Australia, in rugby league in Australia, rugby union in Australia, same in England, you're either a rugby leaguer or you're a rugby union. And you do get a crossover athlete who's, you know, like a Jason Robinson or a Chris Ashton or a Sam Burgess, who jumps across for a bit and then jumps back or whatever. But like you mentioned, in America, the MLR is only a 6-month season, and then the NARL is only going to be another 6 months, and you could probably play for both.
And most Americans don't really know the difference yet, folks. They know most Americans, the average one doesn't know, like, union league, that there's a difference. Rugby is rugby, right? Like,
bigger, and you can sort of earn a living just doing one, where the money's got better and the things. Then you'll have the opportunity to go, do you know what? I'm a rugby leaguer. I prefer rugby, or I prefer rugby union.
So you know, if you speak to any American, they're explicitly associating rugby with rugby union, right? You talk about rugby, they know the All Blacks and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, I actually played the game with 13 players in the field. They're like, how many players are in the field in rugby union? You know, it's like, so you're exactly right. You know, you know what I mean. The person doesn't know. So there probably is a way which you can grow together, and as I said, under one banner, maybe rugby is a thing. But what would probably happen is that you're gonna, at some point, both of the leagues, although they're playing at different times, are going to be competing in the talent pool, and then the owners are going to be like, well, fuck that. He's not going to play rugby league in the off season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you have a more holistic view of it, I think it'll actually exponentially grow rugby in general in the US. But when money becomes involved with things, and sorry to say this, but in the US as well, people can get fucking very greedy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Anywhere in the world.
But with rugby league, there's downs too, right? Like, I think that there's a certain number of phases, then you have to kick. So, like, that's a very American football sort of oriented psychology already from the beginning. So, you know, if rugby is rugby and we're growing with it, I mean, look, it's a win-win as far as I'm concerned, right? The more rugby we can get out in America, the better. But you know.
And it's funny you mentioned before, you said, like, oh, when you mention rugby in America, they know who the All Blacks are. But if you ask them to name an All Blacks player, they'd probably name someone like Sonny Bill Williams, who is one of the biggest rugby names in the world. But he originated from rugby league. That's where he came from. That was his bread and butter. Yeah. And the skill set that he learned from rugby league made him such a good rugby union player, because he ran those short lines, his offloads and the tackles and things like that, and his strength in the tackles. Yeah. So it will be very interesting to see, well, hopefully that sport really take off here, and the introduction of professional league. You know, even with the MLR, Mikey, it took 3 league attempts to try and get this league going, and now the MLR is finally enrooted and has foundations to be a long-lasting league, and hopefully this is going to be the turning point for rugby league in America, and they can get a similar thing going. And then
I can't wait to sit down with American fans someday and sit down and like show them 3 different screens. Be like, okay, this is rugby, and have MLR on, and be like, this is rugby, is like the NARL or whatever it is, and this is rugby, and it's the 7s, and they're gonna look at you like, what the heck is going on here?
And then show them the different guys who play. Like Mikey played this one, Carlin Haas played this one, and Sonny Williams played this one. It's like, oh,
it's so right. I think that all of them have like, you know, for the viewer, like the game is so great to watch. You know, it's like for us coming from rugby league or rugby union, watching American football is like pulling teeth. Sometimes you're like, fucking no, man. Still going like 4 hours later, you know, like, so it really, for viewership, it will be great, you know what I mean? So yeah, I really hope that they can grow together and don't have this kind of disconnect and see it's like us versus them mentality, which sport often propagates, unfortunately.
Right, enough of the rugby chat. I'm bored of it. I'm bored of the rugby chat. That's not why you're in here, Nick. I'm here to pick your brain, listen to your stories. I want to know your most surreal moment, because, you know, from playing it, so your last game at Castleford probably was playing against someone like Sheffield in the pouring rain on a Friday night, and then you transform, like, you know, go ahead in time for 3 or 4 years, and suddenly you're probably sitting at LA around a table with some Hollywood stars. What is the most surreal moment of doing the modeling and people you've met, the places you've been?
I don't reckon it's so much of people I've met, because I'm a bit of a I don't really how to say this in a nice way. I'm still rugby league at heart, if you will. I like to go to the dive bars, man. When I lived in the city, I was going to the shitty bars. I wasn't going to all the fancy clubs and that, right? So it's not really the people I've met, but I've one thing, and it's an experience with Paco Rabanne in 2015, because of the fragrance. They put a wax statue in the Musée Grevin, which is like Madame Tussauds. So still to this day, there's a wax statue of Nick Youngquest as the Invictus character in the museum. So it's pretty fucking funny. It's like so weird, you know. It's like full life, so like it's life size and looks exactly like it. It was bizarre, man. My mum was so fucking proud. She like flew over from Australia just for the unveiling of it. It was hilarious.
And did you stand next to it and have the old photo? This is me standing next to me.
Exactly. That's fucking weird.
That's gotta be weird. That's gotta be like, it's gotta be super cool, but it's gotta be a little strange. Being like, whoa.
Yeah, that's why when you say surreal, I was like, oh my god, this is weird. It's like a really odd feeling. And especially, as you said, coming from rugby league and then doing all this, man. A wax statue in a museum in Paris. I was like, wow, what the life does funny things. That's all an experience, though.
And Nick, you know, so obviously you've done the modeling, you've conquered the professional sporting world, you've conquered the modeling world, and I've known a few models who have then made that transition from doing that into maybe film. Is that the next? Yeah. What's next on the agenda for Nick Youngquest? What's left to conquer?
I think so. I don't mind being in front of camera, filming motion, but I don't think it's I don't know. I'm still at uni doing some stuff in a grad school, so I'm thinking about going and doing sports psych. I keep on adding to my degrees, but yeah, I think I have a really interest in sports psychology, and you know, with the foundation that my buddy and I started, which is Mitch and Nick. Mitch is my business partner. We've been doing a lot of work with a group of psychologists in the US, building programs for athletes to transcend their athletic identity. So to cultivate multiple forms of identity throughout their career. We think that this happens along a continuum, right? And it's not that you play sport for all these years, and at 30 years old, you just retire and become something different. We think that over time within the sport, you should be cultivating these proactively, right? So we've been building these programs with Truesome Visions, which is a US-based company, and with their psychologists. So it's I think I'm probably going to go down that route. We're technically a not-for-profit, so any of the money we make goes back into helping former athletes who might have fallen on hard times, or we run marathons. So we'll run the New York City Marathon every year with a group of former athletes, and yeah, proactively re-engage them with physical activity, isn't running, and give them a sense of purpose. And as I was speaking about before, try and prolong or extend their profiles so they can still feel like they have meaningful existences almost.
Nick, I
you know,
love
some
that.
of the stats,
Love it.
some of the stats, yeah, some of the stats around that I've done a lot of research, man. And some of the stats around American footballers is really alarming. Like 70% of former NFL players are broke within 5 years. And around the same kind of number are also divorced. So this is just, you know, the buildup of athletic identity is so strong. And, you know, there's so many stories of suicide or people going down, you know, dark and dangerous paths when they retire. And it's not essentially their fault. You know, the sport doesn't do a great job of allowing someone to really understand who they are. You know, we're building all of our values and everything on the systems in which we engage with all the time, and some of those systems can be quite bad. You know, like for me, the only thing that really made me fit into teams was drinking as much as I could, doing something stupid when I went out, or sleeping with girls, right? And these are kind of horrible kind of lessons to be teaching young men. And so yeah, we don't think that the governing bodies do the best job, and they fairly quickly relinquish their responsibility to the player or the athlete once they retire. A lot of my research has also surrounded female gymnasts in the US, and we know now because of the Netflix documentary that it's not just the build-up of athletic identity; they're also exposed to some horrible environments. So yeah, it's something that I'm really interested in, and yeah, I really hope that we can have a lasting change, and rather than see the superstars that we see on the TV then struggle after they finish playing, go on and flourish in life, you know, and do great things, you know. Yeah, it's not everyone struggles, but there's more struggles than there is, you know, good stories out there.
I love that, Nick. And doing a little bit of homework before we had this conversation, and I was looking into your background and stuff that came up. And I think is it Athletes for Life? Is that what your nonprofit is? Yeah. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, you're looking at retired athlete right here, and Foden seemed to be retired athlete, right? So it was two volunteers for you right off the bat.
Yeah,
what a program! Like, congratulations, that is an unbelievable program. But I'll tell you what, I know you've got that you're kind of going with, but I've heard that American accent in there a few times. I've heard that Aussie one take a back seat, so maybe film is not too far off in the future. I've heard it sneaks in there. It sneaks in there.
I've been hanging out here. I'm deep in. I'll tell your viewers as well, because I know we said this off air before. I'm in deep in South Australia. I'm in a town of like 1,000 people. That's why I'm in my car. So sorry about that. I was going to take you to my tent, but I was like, nah, let's do it in the car. I've been surfing down here, and I was having that conversation with a couple of American dudes here that are surfing as well. And I just got fucking done with. I'd go to the bar, and I'd ask for a beer, and they'd be like, "What? A beer?" And I'd be like, "What are you saying, man? Like, can I have a beer?" Oh my God, a beer? I didn't understand what you were saying. So I was like, Mark, you have to take the R, you know, it's just the R. Like I don't say New York, like Aussie says New York. We say New York. And even the American dudes here last night, we're having a few beers and they'll just give me that much shit. They're like, oh my God, man, you sound like a fucking American.
we hang around with Luke Hume, and Luke Hume came to I'm not quite as rock and roll as you, Nick, sadly. What came to my 1-year-old's birthday party, and I introduced to my wife. My wife had heard of Luke Hume. She never met him. She thought he was American, and then heard him speak, and she was like, "What is he? What language is he speaking?" I was like, "He's Australian. Like, he's been in America for so long, but he has not shredded any of that accent or all the little quirky words that he uses."
Yeah, that's so funny.
I love that Luke Hume has made his way into this conversation multiple times throughout this. This is going to make his life, I think. And so,
Luke is a good bloke. Well, I've had some fun times with Luke, so it's good.
So, Nick, someone I wanted to know. Obviously, you're a Sydney boy. You spent a bit of time in Sydney. Do you know the Burgess brothers?
I'm good friends with Luke. Not so close with Sam, but yeah, Luke and Tom I do know. I played against Tom when I was at Cass, and he was obviously at Bradford then. And then yeah, I'm good buddies with Luke because Luke played at the I'm forgetting the name, the French team, the Catalans. Played at the Catalans with Greg Bird. I'm good mates with Greg Bird, so I used to go and see Birdie a lot when I was in Europe. So became close with Luke. Great lads. Lads.
Well, I was good because I know that Sammy's just done the Australian SAS Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
I did the English one when they first did it, so I did Oh, it was horrible. I think Sam did really well on it. I did all right until the torturing. No, not for me.
No good. Yeah,
No good, no.
I feel like Sammy might have excelled at it. I reckon.
Yeah. He's tough. He's made a tougher stuff than me. He plays in a tough position. Like we said, I'm a winger.
Yeah.
So as soon as
they were going to put me on, but then they fucking did some research and saw I was a winger. They're like, nah.
Awesome. So last question on the rugby as well, Nick. Just in terms of, do you think that it's going to excel? Do you think there is, one space for rugby league over here in America? And if it is, what does it need to do in particular to excel and grow?
I think there's definitely a marketplace. If you look at sport in the US, the landscape of sport in general, of contact sports explicitly, there's no real pathway past university, right, to participate. So that obviously shows that there's a clear market for it. I think that the key aspect for growth and for sustainability long term is, as we mentioned before, grassroots. So getting into schools and getting the rugby ball in kids' hands at an early age. And like when we see rugby balls sold at the sports stores over there at Models or whatever it's called, and kids are going there and buying them and stuff, and you're seeing kids in the park in New York City kicking a rugby ball around, I think that's when we're going to know, hang on a second, we're getting somewhere, But yeah, there's definitely a marketplace, and you don't want, like, with Athletes for Life as well, going back to that, like some of my research has also surrounded athletic identity build up with college athletes. The student athlete problem over there is right. It's crazy because at 23, they're playing in front of 90,000 people, winning all these different trophies and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, if you don't get picked up by a team, well, you're okay. Go recreate yourself in a big world that doesn't give a fuck that you played for any of you won any trophy. So I think that as a realistic extension of their sports, hopefully like they can cross over as we were talking about. And it's I think it'll boom, man. It'll go crazy because we all love watching sport, and especially contact sports, which are kind of dangerous as well. But hey, I also just on a side note, the Americans will love this. It's because everyone was always asking, you guys don't wear helmets and that. And I actually take medication every day from too many concussions. So you have to make sure that it's practiced at the safe way as well. So.
Yeah.
Nick, nothing more from me. I just have to say, man, I love the Models reference that you dropped in there. A couple of, it's. Are
they a sponsor? Or?
I think Models just went out of business by me, so I don't know that they'll be sponsoring anybody anytime soon. A couple of the shops closed up. Yeah, I think I think they were hit pretty hard by COVID around here locally. But man, as a kid growing up, like that was it. It was Models. There was no Amazon. There was no, online sporting goods store. It was walk up to the local Models, pick up whatever you needed. And so I absolutely love that reference. But Nick, we're putting together a New York surf crew. So Nick Boyer is already in. He's told us that he's coming. He's our other guest on the show. I see you got the boards in the car. So next time you're back in New York, let's get some rugby guys together and get out for some waves around here in New York.
For sure, brother. So when I lived in the city, I used to surf a lot. I lived there. I lived in the city for 7 years, right? And the first year and a half, I was like, I'm not surfing, man. It's in the middle of winter, it's way too cold. But I kept on seeing the waves there, and I ended up doing it. First day I surfed was at Rockaway, and there was like a foot of snow on the beach. I was like,
I love it.
So good, but like I also had a car in the city, so it was kind of easier, right? So, but yeah, definitely, man. I'm gonna be back in the US in probably a month's time, so we'll have to. I'll make my way over to the East Coast for sure, and we'll. Probably won't be surfing much in the summer, but we'll do our best.
So Mike can have you for the surfing in the day, and then a little birdie's told me that you love. You mentioned you like the little dive bars, but I heard you like a nice New York karaoke bar. So Nick.
As well. Do you like karaoke?
Oh mate, I did the Celebrity X Factor back in England a couple of years ago, mate. I freaking love it. Yeah, dude. Yeah. So we'll go smash it karaoke bars.
There's a place called Baby Grand. It's on. It's in Soho. It's on Grand, obviously, and I can't remember the cross street, but mate, we used to fucking run that joint. Honestly, I feel sorry for any of the other patrons because they didn't get to sing many songs, man. I may as well have just been me singing the entire time with a microphone.
Well,
New York itinerary set, man. New York itinerary set. A surf in the afternoon, rocket with me, and then you can go meet Fodes in Soho. That's it. We're good.
Sounds like a good trip to New York. I wouldn't spend it any other way. Nick, thank you very much for coming on the show, mate. It's great to chat to you. Love hearing about everything you're doing for mental health and things like that, but also, you know, for having someone like you who's intelligent and articulate and, you know, well-traveled, speaking very highly of rugby league, whether in England, Australia, and now in America. I think it's going to do wonders for the sport. And so thank you very much for that. And we're all about growing rugby here on the USA Rugby Clubhouse. So thanks for spending some time chatting to me and Mikey and sharing some stories with us.
Appreciate it, legends. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon, and keep up all the good work, man. I think it's you know, obviously this is a big part of, you know, the education part for the Americans cohort of the next rugby stars, let's say. So
what two great guests we had, the two Nicks, both surfers after your own heart, Mikey. I noticed that there was big hints if they're in New York, pick up a board and come down and surf with me. But I'm glad I'm going to get Nick for the night out, because I think he'll call. Although you got him on the beach, I'll have him in the nightclubs and in the karaoke bars where he'll do more damage.
I'm just looking for friends to paddle out with, folks. You obviously made it very clear that you're not coming out with me. It's you'll stay on the beach from a safe distance. I need people that want to come out and paddle out in the water with me.
I can't remember. Did Nick told the story off air about the 5-meter great white shark?
Yeah, thankfully, because I think he would have scared a lot of people out of the water if he told everyone that on the show. Because
let me just remind myself again, the Jaws movie. Where was that set? Jaws. That was in Martha's Vineyard, which is like a couple of miles away. Down the yeah, dude, I'm all right. I'll tell you what, I'll stand on land and I'll do the shark watching for you. If any fins pop up, you'll just see me waving and you can paddle in.
You'll just stand there on your budgie smugglers on the
There
beach.
you go.
Just looking good. Speaking of though, dude, I'm glad you're comfortable in that sweatshirt, because over the course of the past 2 hours or whatever we've been there doing this, I've got this suit on the whole time, trying to hold down this part that you told me to wear from the beginning. And I think I probably lost about 5 pounds with all these lights on, sweating in this little box of a room that I'm in right now. So
I just want you to look smart.
I appreciate
I want
that.
you at your best. I want you at your best. But talking of the best, like I said, two great guests. Nick Boyer, he really is. He's playing some superb rugby. Although Houston aren't winning too many games, he is the firecracker in the heartbeat of that team at the moment. So I know you mentioned it. You'd like to see him pushing for the American Eagles team. But great to have him on the show. Great to get Nick number 2.0, should I say, on as well, talking about all things from rugby league to the MLR, but then also talking about his stuff that he's doing behind the scenes for athletes and mental fitness.
Yeah, I honestly, I know we've had a lot of cool guests on the show, right? And there have been some real stars that have come through here, but this has been one of the coolest shows I've been a part of so far. And I know I told you that off air, and we were chatting with our production team behind the scenes a little bit, but what incredible conversations and insight. I mean, Boyer, a guy that's played all over the US, such cool perspective on the different clubs and what it's like to transition between these different environments and play 7s and play 15s and his goals for the future, and just so much to look forward to for that young man. And I know, like you and I both know, I'm a big Connor Buckley fan, to see him in the 9 shirt for the US sometime. So I'm really pulling for that. He's got to get that New York 9 shirt first, and then I'm hoping for him in the US 9 shirt. But you know, we had Nate Augsburger, who was here earlier in the season. I'm a fan of his too. Boyer, I'm another fan of. Like, you know, and then Nick Youngquest. Like, I mean, like I said, I mean, you keeping that surfing terminology and lingo going. I'm a rugby league kook to the fullest. But such awesome insight into just rugby in general, and what an articulate guy. And like we said, he's professional. He presents himself well. He's doing great work behind the scenes for mental health with athletes. And so, I mean, you know, he retired early, made a good decision, retired at the right time, took your opportunity. Like we said, folks, 2012 could have been you, Don. That could have been you with what the trophy. What's the trophy you would have won there with Sale or whatever else you were doing? That could have been you, folks.
Could have been me.
Coulda, shoulda.
Well, talking of insight, let's take a look at next week's fixtures. Some real big ones coming up as well. First one, Toronto versus the Free Jacks. East Coast rivalry. Toronto need to get back on track. They've fallen behind because they had a bye week last week. Free Jacks obviously lost, didn't get anything from the game from us. So for those two teams, you know, it's sort of make or break for one of them, because someone needs to get back into contention with a good win, and the other one, you know, will fall a little bit further behind. How do you see it playing out?
That's it. That's going to be a really good game. I think what it'll come down to, and perhaps maybe this is me just oversimplifying this, making this too simple. I mean, you guys really, that game with New England was a tough one. I think physically that would have taken a toll on them. It was hot. It was intense. It was uncomfortable. Yeah. And Toronto's coming off a bye week. That may be the difference maker in Toronto edging them out this week. And that could be. I just remember being late in the game and looking up and seeing the Free Jacks tight five still in the game, well beyond the 60, 65 minute mark.
The Free Jacks are at home though. They are at home, and they're tough. They're tougher to beat at home.
They're tough at home, but I mean, how do you feel today after that game yesterday? I mean, well, you sit out in the back a little bit, so you're fine. You feel fine. How many tackles did you make yesterday? Half a tackle? Is that?
No, I think I looked on the stats. I think I was like 2. 100% tackle completion. You like to know, Mikey. That's always nice.
So the Free Jacks are at home. I give you that, and it is a tough place to go play. But I'm going to go with Toronto, not because I dislike the Free Jacks. Genuinely, I like the way that they play. I thought they played a great game with you all. But I do think that the difference maker will be that Toronto will come in fresh. And this game that yesterday that you played against the Free Jacks will have made them for an uncomfortable week, I think, for them going into this weekend.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, coming off the back of a bye week, Toronto know it's a must-win game. I'm very interested to watch the back rows get at it, because I thought the back rows were pretty impressive of the Free Jacks. And
yes, I agree.
We had Rumble on a couple of weeks ago. He's been outstanding. So I think it's going to be the battle of the back row, just sort of like getting on the ball, being a nose, carrying the ball as well, and being physical. So interesting to watch that battle. But I would probably go with you as well. Toronto need the win. Free Jacks might be hurting a little bit from being out in the sun too long in New York, but it'll be a close one. It definitely will. I definitely think that the Free Jacks will never get steamrolled at home.
I agree.
Game. The next one is Houston versus San Diego at San Diego. San Diego, for me, are turning a corner. I think they really are. And results have all gone their way. Utah lost at the weekend. So did the Gilgronis, who lost to the Giltinis, which has meant they're still in catching range. And I think they're going to be licking their lips thinking, okay, they can really go for it this second half of the season and push themselves to be in contention for that big playoff game come the end of the season.
Yeah, I've been waiting to say this. At the beginning, I was heavy on San Diego, and then, like we said, they took that low. But I've been waiting to get back on that San Diego bandwagon, because I do think that they're a quality organization. And although we speak very highly of Houston around here, and although I loved having Nick Boyer on the show, I have to edge out and go San Diego on this one.
Okay, probably the biggest match of the weekend, because it's the top of the West Coast, LA, take on the top of the East Coast out in Atlanta. I think this is going to be a really interesting game. Obviously, LA have got things back on track, but I just like the way Atlanta are playing at the moment. They just have good variation. They have strength, they have power, they have X factor in players as well. Their pack's looking strong. Their leaders on the field, they've had a few injuries, but guys have come in. But the guys who've filled the shirts have been playing superb. I just think they're a bit of a beast at the moment. Obviously, LA is a beast in itself. They're full of superstars. But there's a little bit inside me that's sort of saying, that Atlanta could do it. It's going to be a real good one. Obviously, if I'm putting my bias hat on as a Rooney player and fan, then obviously I want Atlanta to lose and LA to steamroll them. But I just think Atlanta are in a good place at the moment. They're a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I said that the only team I would pick against with LA was New York. Yeah. This may be my second time going against LA with Atlanta, and then I think it's a combination of things. I think if this were in Los Angeles, I think I would have picked Los Angeles hands down. I think I would have said, look, Los Angeles at home, Atlanta's good.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it would have gone the other way. But I think that, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how this one unfolds. But what the heck? I got nothing to lose. I'm wrong most of the time anyway, so I'm going to go with Atlanta.
Saying this, Mikey, as well. Remember that LA played on Wednesday, so they have had.
Yeah, I did think about that in the back of my head. I did think about that, and I realized that they had a nice cruisy couple days there in LA, hanging out by their coffee bar and then by the beach and whatever else they're doing. But
no, again, this is going to be an exciting game. This is going to be a tough one to call. It will be a close game. I'm going LA, by the way. I know.
Are you going LA?
I know I've just picked up Atlanta massively, but I have to. Like, this just. You know,
although I here's what we're gonna do. Although I agree with you, I think LA is gonna win. I'm gonna go against you because I think that I'm just gonna go against you. Screw it. I'm just gonna go against you. Why not? Why not? I'm just because it's a toss up. I'm just going against you. I'm going Atlanta.
Okay, and then another match that's going to play into San Diego's hands quite nicely. The Gilgronis are taking on Utah at Utah. So one of them is going to lose out. It means that San Diego get a win. They'll be jumping to third, and then it's all to play for. Going to be a tough game. I know I keep jumping on and off this Utah bandwagon because I do really like the way Utah play the game, but they're coming up against a very stingy defense. And for me, Utah leak too many easy tries and too many easy points. And I think the way Austin play the game, they can edge them. I think they'll just edge them, and it'll be a close one. And Utah are going to have to rely on too many individual bits of brilliance, which have won them games in the past. But I just think Austin are too organized, too disciplined, and they've come off a long rest as well. I know it's in Utah, but they've had the 10-day turnaround instead of the usual 6. And I can just see Austin winning it.
Do I get off the Utah bandwagon here? Is this the stop? Is this where we get off? Because
it's like a one stop.
I think what a mess. I am still a fan of Utah, but I agree with exactly what you said at the beginning. I think you hit the nail on the head. Austin is a team that is a good defensive outfit. They're very stingy in terms of not letting teams score too many points on them. I mean, look, they held Los Angeles to under 20, right? What was it, 16 or something like that they held them to? Yeah. So from that perspective, I think that it'll frustrate Utah. And then, like you said, Utah's defense maybe just leaking a few too many. Austin having some firepower. Even though Utah's good at home, I'm just going to go Austin as well.
And we've only got 5 games this week. So the last one is New York versus Old Glory. And obviously I can't comment on that game being involved in it, hopefully, but I'll let the Mr. Brooklyn himself in New York, biggest fan, break it down.
Look, if you all play the way you did last week, I think, and if you combine the way you've been playing the past 3 weeks, let's put it that way. So you take what you've done and what you've hung your hat on defensively, right? The defensive shifts that you've put in, and you bring that flair from the attacking side. I think that you're going to be not only the team in the East that rises to the top, but the team that really gives LA another run for their money in the championship final. Because, like, I know you've beaten them once already, right? But I think that could be the case and it really seems like you're starting to grow in that direction. So again, I'm biased, so no one really cares what I think when it comes to New York. Everyone just probably fast forwards this part or mutes it or tunes me out or something because no one cares.
I'm still watching by this time, though.
Yeah, no one cares at this point, and it just but yeah, I think that even though it's in DC, I do think that you all will be too much for them down there this weekend.
Well, there you have it. The picks are in. Get down to the local bookies, put your bets on, and do everything that Mikey says, but the opposite, and you might win some money. But it's been great having the guests on. Great chatting to you as always, Mikey. And as always, until next week, we'll see you in the clubhouse.